Welcome to the next lesson, Amazon Sponsored Product Ads Optimization Tips. And here's what we'll be going over. Why sponsored ads are the first type of ads that you should optimize, whether or not you should try to make a profit while using your sponsored ads, how to calculate your break-even ACoS, and don't worry if you don't know what that is, I'll tell you exactly how to calculate it and what it is later on, how to determine your target ACoS, and how to set up, optimize, and scale your sponsored ads campaigns. So is this the only strategy that's out there? Well, when it comes to any type of online advertising, there is no one single strategy that every single expert will agree upon, nor one strategy that'll work for every person and for every product. And this is true for Facebook, AdWords, Twitter, any other type of advertising system, and even Amazon's own advertising platforms as well, such as Amazon Sponsored Product Ads that we'll be covering now, and their headline search ads. So why would you want to start with this strategy if there are lots of different ones out there? Well, because it simply works. This is still a strategy that we use every day in our own Amazon businesses. Plus, it's the perfect combination of easy to set up, but still advanced enough to help grow and scale your business. So why would you want to use Amazon sponsored ads in your business? Well, for one reason, it has built-in conversion tracking because it's all within Amazon. It's one of the only systems out there that has this, that lets you track exactly what you spend and know exactly what you get back for it. Plus, it's the most targeted traffic that you can get for your products. And it's easy to set up and easy to run. Now, one important note is that the official name for these types of ads is Amazon Sponsored Products Ads. That's a lot to say, so sometimes people refer to it as simply Amazon Sponsored Ads, which is what I prefer, so I've reserved the right throughout this lesson to use those interchangeably. I just didn't want you to get confused. If I talk about Amazon Sponsored Ads, I'm really talking about Amazon Sponsored Product Ads. They're the same thing. Now, there's a common misconception that you only want to make a profit when you're running any type of advertising, and that's not necessarily true when you're using Amazon sponsored ads, because really, it depends upon your current strategy or goal, and sometimes profit is not the only goal. For example, for launch and growth, when you're launching a new product, your goal should be to increase traffic, increase sales, increase keyword rankings, and get reviews. So when you're in this phase, it's okay to lose some money on Amazon ads, but of course, only up to a certain point. Then there's the sales and profit optimization. Once your product has been launched and is now selling, your goal should be to optimize your ads for both sales and profit. This is where you'll be the majority of the time and when you want to try and come close to breaking even with your ads. Now, I'm saying coming close because there'll be more on that later, why it's okay to lose a little bit of money still on your ads. And then the third mode is inventory conservation. When you're low on inventory, you'll want to maximize your profits and conserve inventory until it's ready to be restocked. So you can lower your bids and your budget to help out with this, or even turn your ads off altogether. But how do you know what exactly to do differently when we're using one of these different strategies? Well, here's the answer. Once we know something called our break-even ACoS, and there's more on that later, we can then determine our target ACoS based upon our current strategy and manage our ads to try and hit that. And we'll be going over exactly what that is shortly. Let's start by talking about ACoS. And what exactly is it? Well, it stands for the advertising cost of sales, and it's the percentage of sales that you spent on advertising. And this is calculated by dividing total ad spend by total sales. And instead of going through their example here, let's go through a simpler explanation of it. Imagine you spent $100 on an Amazon sponsored ad campaign. And then imagine that the sales that you got out of that campaign were $300. This means your ACoS is 33%, which is simply $100 what you spent divided by $300 what you made. Now, is that ACoS good? Is it bad? We don't know because it depends. If you normally only make a 10% profit per sale as it is, so $30 on $300 of sales, then you just lost $70 because you spent $100 on ads. However, if you normally make a 50% profit per sale, then you just made an additional $50. Because ACoS doesn't take profit into account at all, it's impossible to determine whether an ACoS is good or bad unless you know what your profit is and what your current strategy is. So let's look at some real world examples of ACOS. This is a screenshot, so you can see we're in the first line. We spent $86, a little over that, and we only made $67. So that's a very high ACOS of 128%. Next one, we spent $188, but we made $304 in sales, so that one's a little better, 61.7% ACOS. But it's not until we get a bit lower, down into the second to last line, where we spent $259 and made almost $1,800, that we get to a really good ACOS of only 14.4%. And the one below that is similar, where we have an ACOS of 23.5%. Now, we still don't really know if either one of those are any good, because before we can do that, we have to calculate what's called our break-even ACOS. And now, if you want to know the super secret answer to how to figure it out, it's exactly the same as your profit margin. I've seen a lot of spreadsheets and calculations that tell you how to calculate your break-even ACOS, but in the end, it's always your profit margin. So let's go take a look at some real examples, though, to see exactly how this works out. So here are some real numbers. We have a product that sells for $35, and the Amazon payout for that is $21.65. Now, the true product cost, such as what we calculated in Module 2, is $9.40. That's what it costs for us to buy it from the supplier, get it shipped in, and sent and prepped to Amazon. That means that our profit is $12.25, which is a profit margin of 35%. Now, what I just told you then is that your break-even ACOS is exactly the same as your profit margin, which is 35%. So let's look and see how that works out in an actual Amazon ads example. So let's imagine we spent $98 on Amazon ads. Our sales were $280, and our ACOS on that ad campaign was 35%. That means that our profit, before we even take the ads into account, would be $98. We had $280 in sales, and we know this product has a 35% profit margin, so that's $98. And since we spent exactly $98, our profit after the ads is zero. And that means that our ACOS of 35% is exactly the same as our profit margin of 35% as well. So anytime anyone ever asks you what your break-even ACOS is, all you need to know, it's your profit margin. Now, there are some wrenches thrown into this sometimes that can make it a little confusing, such as what if someone orders more than one unit at a time? What if you offer discounts or coupons, or your sales price changes? What if someone clicks on your product and then buys a different product? Or what if you believe that your sponsored ad increases your organic rankings and sales, which we believe they do, and therefore the effect of that isn't really shown in your ads at all? Well, break-even ACOS is not 100% accurate. However, it's an excellent barometer for optimizing your ads and helping determine your target ACOS. Now, once you know what your break-even ACOS is, and again, that's your profit margin, and you know what your current strategy or goal is, you can then figure out what your target ACOS should be for your sponsored product ads. So if you're in launch and growth mode and you just really care about getting more rankings and sales, your target ACOS should range anywhere from your break-even ACOS up to as much as 100%. Because we really don't care as much about profit right now. We want to try to increase our BSR and our search ranking as much as possible. So aim for 100% or less for your target ACOS. Now, once you're into the sales and profit optimization mode, you can go for less than that. Your target ACOS should be at or slightly above your break-even ACOS, and a good rule of thumb is up to 20% higher. Now, you may be wondering, why are we willing to spend more than our target ACOS if we're trying to optimize profits? Because on each of those sales, you're losing money. Well, the reason is that the sales you're getting from your sponsored products ads should only make up a portion of your overall business's sales. And the benefits that you get from making those additional sponsored product ad sales almost always outweigh those extra costs by increased search rankings and increased BSR and sales velocity. So for example, if your profit margin and break-even ACOS is 35%, your target ACOS then should be anywhere from 35 up to 55%. Now, there is an exception to this rule. If almost all of your sales are coming from sponsored ads, you're not getting any sales organically at all, you will want to set your target ACOS at your break-even ACOS. Then you need to figure out why you're not getting any organic sales. And then the last mode, of course, is inventory conservation. And in this case, your target ACOS should be anywhere from 0, having your ads turned off, up to about 10%. and I like to usually aim for 10% until I'm really, really close to being out of inventory. Amazon sponsored ads are made up of 5 different elements: campaigns, ad groups, ads, your targeting, which can be either keywords or products, and then negative keywords. And here's a basic hierarchy for how these all fit together. At the highest level, you have campaigns, and then within campaigns, you have your ad groups, and you can have one or more ad groups. Then within each ad group, you can have your ads, and just think of these as products. So within an ad group, you can have one or more products being advertised inside that ad group. Now, in addition to having your ads or products in your ad groups, you also have your targeting. This used to be just keywords, because you would be targeting what keywords people are typing in order to show your products. But now Amazon recently added in products as well. So in addition to having your ads show up when people are typing in keywords, you can also set this up now so that when people are looking at other products and other categories, you can also have your ads show up. We won't be using that because it's brand new, and I'll talk more about that in a second. So think of this really as more of the targeting is your keywords that you want your ads to show up inside of a campaign. Now, the last part of a campaign are something called negative keywords. And these are keywords that you don't want your product to show up because you know it's not relevant and you don't want to waste money on people seeing your ad, clicking on it, you spending money, but then not getting a sale. Now, these can be either at the campaign or ad group level, and I generally use these at the campaign level. Like I mentioned a moment ago, keywords used to be the only thing that you could target when setting up your sponsored product ads. But Amazon is now letting sellers target competitors' products as well, which actually lets you target both competing products or entire categories. Now, since targeting products is new, we don't recommend it yet until we can do more testing to show exactly how well it works. So for the time being, we're only recommending targeting keywords, and that's what we'll focus on for the remainder of this training. Now, when that changes, if we find that we're getting good results using some good methodologies, using the product targeting, we'll definitely update this and let you know. When it comes to setting up your Amazon sponsored ad campaigns, there are a lot of different ways for structuring your campaigns, and some people are very, very particular about it. I've used several different methods, and while they all have their benefits, I always come back to this one for its simplicity and effectiveness. But of course, feel free to try your own and experiment. The most important thing is that once you find a structure that works for you, apply consistently across all your campaigns so you know exactly how and why they're set up. Now here's a simple yet very effective structure that I like using when setting up my campaigns. I create one auto campaign for each product, and I name that campaign the SKU for your product, plus the product name, plus the word auto. Then I also set up one manual campaign for each product as well. And the name of that campaign will be the SKU for the product, plus the product name, plus the word manual. And then inside that manual campaign, I'm going to have 2 ad groups. The first I'll call high converting, and this is going to contain all the keywords that I found to be profitable. And this is also where I put all my initial keywords that I feel are relevant for my product inside of it. Then I'm also going to set up another ad group called low converting. And this is going to contain keywords that aren't profitable, but I'm still getting relevant traffic, so I don't want to forget about them completely. And then for each one of my campaigns, I'm only going to have one ad or one product that I'll use for the entire campaign. Now, you may wonder why I'm using SKU in the names of my campaigns instead of an ASIN or instead of just the product name. Well, the reason for that is because in all the ad reports that you'll see later on, they put the SKU inside of it. So by having the SKU in the ad report, it's going to make it much simpler to tie it back to the campaign that you're looking at. There are a few other things you'll need to keep in mind as well when setting up your campaigns, such as your daily budget, and I recommend starting with $30 per campaign and then monitoring that to see if you need to raise or lower it. You'll need the match type that you'll be setting up for your keywords. I recommend starting with phrase match only. There are the start dates and the end dates for each campaign. However, I like to leave the end date wide open because you can always pause or turn these campaigns off whenever you want to. For the targeting method, I like to create both manual and automatic targeting to get the best benefits. And then for the targeting type, like we talked about before, start with keyword targeting and forget about product targeting for now. Then you also need to know your cost per click bid. And I would suggest using Amazon's suggested bid for starters and monitoring it using what we'll be teaching you later on to optimize your ads. Now let's go take a look at a campaign together. So here I am in one of our Seller Essential accounts, and I'm on the campaign menu, and I get here by going to Advertising and then Campaign Manager. We'll click on Create Campaign to set up our campaign. Then we'll click on Continue under Sponsored Products. Now the first thing we need to do is give our campaign a name. Remember, this will be the manual campaign, so I like to use the SKU, then the product name, and then the word manual. So the SKU for this product is Misto MBA OOS01. Then I'll type in the name of it. And then the word manual. Now for the start date, we'll leave that as today. For the end date, we'll leave wide open. We don't need to put anything in there. For the daily budget, I'm going to start off with $30 a day. Now for targeting, this will be the manual targeting group. We'll create an automatic campaign after this. Now let's scroll down and create our ad group. Now we're creating our high converting ad group first. So I'm just going to call it high converting. Then we pick the product, and there it is right there, the olive oil sprayer, and click add. Then we'll scroll down. The next thing we need to add in is our targeting. Now we're only going to be doing keyword targeting. You'll notice product targeting. It even says the word beta. That's how new this is. By the time you read this, it might be out of beta and it might be fully released to everyone, but we're still not recommending doing any product targeting because it's too new and we just haven't seen very many good results with it yet. So let's focus only on keyword targeting. So here's where we actually add in our keywords we want to bid on and our default bid. We can leave it whatever they're suggesting for now at 75 cents. We'll leave Bid Plus unchecked. We have not gotten great results with trying this out, so I recommend starting off without it. And then we need to add in our keywords. So we're going to enter in the keywords that we want to bid on, and these will be the same keywords that you used for your launch for start. So olive oil sprayer. And let's say stainless steel olive oil sprayer. Now, I always recommend starting off with phrase match instead of broad or exact. And then we click on Add Keywords. And you'll notice when you scroll down that these keywords have now been added down here. Now, one more thing you could do, you could click on the suggested keywords as well. And if you see any that you think are relevant and you want to test out, absolutely go ahead and let's add them in. Here's our good one, Misto olive oil sprayer. Click on add. Pump oil sprayer for cooking. That's another good one. And oil pump spray bottle, olive oil spray mister. Those are both pretty good. So we'll add those in as well. All right, then we scroll down and we'll see that we now have 6 keywords in our campaign. Now, what I am suggesting is that you actually use the suggested bid from Amazon for starters, and then we can always adjust once we're optimizing our campaigns. They will show you the low and high cost per click they recommend, but usually the suggested one is a pretty good one for starting out to help control your costs and start getting traffic. So what I'm going to do is simply click on Apply All. And you'll notice that it updated all of the keyword bids over here. Now we'll scroll down, and the next section would be to add in our negative keywords. But when we're starting off, we don't have any negative keywords yet. So we're simply going to skip that, and then we're going to click Launch Campaign. Now you see that our campaign has been created. We could go back to the campaign manager and click on this campaign to edit it, but since we just created it, we can also edit it right here. And the reason we're going to do that is because we need to add in our other ad group, the low converting ad group. So let's go do that right now. After I clicked on edit, I need to click on ad groups and then create ad group. Now for this ad group, we're going to call this one the low converting. And we'll add the exact same product to it. Then we scroll down. For targeting, we'll leave it at keyword targeting. Now for the keywords and bids, this is where we'll be entering in any keywords that we did get clicks and did get sales in the high converting ad group, but those were just costing us too much and we weren't able to make a profit, or they didn't fit what our goal was for this campaign right now. So instead of turning them off altogether, I suggest putting them into this low converting ad group and lowering the bids to see if we can still get a few sales, but sales that actually make sense because the cost isn't so high. So right now, when we're starting off, you won't have any keywords put in here, but after you do your optimization after a few weeks and you find keywords like that, here is where you put them. So let's imagine that Misto olive oil sprayer was too competitive, costing us too much, but we got a few sales, so we'd want to put that into this group instead. So let's imagine that we wanted to lower this bid to about 50 cents from what it was before. Then we'd click on Add Keywords. We'd also need to make sure that if we're adding keywords to the low converting group, we go back and we pause them in the high converting group. You don't want to have the same keyword in both groups. But once we put this over here, we simply could, again, look, they're suggesting a $1.74 bid, but we know, or at least in this example, we're imagining that this was too much to bid. We weren't making a good profit off it, so we're going to lower that drastically and try to get some traffic and sales. And now the next thing to do is to simply create this ad group. And that's it. Now we have a campaign with 2 ad groups. Let's take a quick look at that. And here's our campaign right now. And you'll see that we have both ad groups down here. Again, now we don't have any data yet because we just created this one, but that's how you create your first manual campaign. Now, the next step is to create our auto campaign. And let's go do that now. So now I'm creating a brand new campaign. For the name of it, I'm going to name it very similar. I'm going to use the SKU, the name of the product, but at the end, I'm going to make this auto instead of manual. I'll leave the start date as today, leave no end date. I'll put the budget in the same as 30, but this time I'm going to use automatic targeting instead of manual targeting. So let's scroll down and continue. Now I need to create our ad group. Now for the auto ad group, we're only going to have one ad group, so we're not going to have a high converting or low converting. So we just need to give it any name at all. Let's just call it the olive oil sprayer auto ad group. There we go. Now let's go down and pick our product. And we're going to use the exact same product that was in our manual campaign. Click on Add. Now we'll scroll down. Now for bidding, I want to use the suggested bid. They're saying the range can be anywhere from 47 cents to $1.90, but they're suggesting 109, so I am going to use exactly that. Now, for the negative keywords, this is where we want to put in all of the keywords that we have in our manual campaign. Because if that campaign is already bidding on those keywords, we don't want to waste time spending money or trying to bid on those keywords with the auto campaign. So I'm going to pause this, go grab those keywords, and put them over here as our negative keywords. So there are the keywords we have in our manual campaign. I'm going to click on Add Keywords to put them as the negative keywords here. And look at this, we're getting an error. You'll notice that 4 of them were added. However, 2 of them were not. And here's the reason. 1, you can't have more than 10 words per keyword. That's not the case here. What we're seeing here is we can't have more than 4 words for negative phrase keywords. So each one of these has more than 4 words. So a phrase can only consist of 4 words or less. These have 5. Now, we could either leave these out and forget about them, but here's what you do when you come into a situation like this. Let's add them as a negative exact instead. Because chances are if someone's typing in pump oil sprayer for cooking, they're not putting anything before it or afterwards. That's the exact phrase they're adding in there. So we're simply going to change this from phrase to exact whenever we get this error. Then click on Add Keywords. And you'll see that now those have been added as well. They just have to be exact when there's more than 4 words. Now, the last thing for us to do is to launch this campaign, and we are done. And there you'll see that we successfully launched it, and in about an hour, this campaign should be running. So let's imagine you have your ads set up and running, and it's been a few weeks now, and data's starting to come in. Well, what do you do next? You start optimizing. You want to adjust your ads to try and hit your target ACoS values based upon your current strategy. And let's review those again. If you're in launch and growth, you want to go up to 100% of ACoS. If you're in the sales and profit mode, your target ACoS should be your break-even ACoS plus up to an additional 20%. And if you're trying to conserve inventory, you want to make that target ACoS either be 10% or simply turn off your ads. Now, when do you optimize? Well, each week you should review 2 weeks worth of data in your campaign, but from data that started 3 weeks ago. Why? Because you want to ignore the previous 7 days since there's a delay in both reporting and in sales coming in after ads are clicked on. So here's an example using real data. If today is Sunday, June the 24th, you want to filter your report data to show you only Sunday, June 23rd through Saturday, June 16th. Now, I'm more of a visual person, so let's take a look at a calendar and see what that really looks like. So here's a calendar of the month of June 2018. If today were analysis day or Sunday, June the 24th, we want to go back and filter it through this week, which starts on Sunday, June the 3rd, and go all the way through this week, ending on Saturday, June the 16th. That means we want to exclude the 7 days just prior because that data isn't complete yet and it's going to skew our results. So here I am inside of Seller Central and I'm on my Campaign Manager. Got here by going to Advertising and Campaign Manager. Now I filtered all my campaigns down to just these two. And the way that I did that is by using this little filter bar. Anything you type in here, it'll only pull up those campaigns that have those words in it, which is another reason why I like using the skew. Now I can only see these two campaigns like I want to. Now, as you can see, it's automatically showing you today's data because that was the last date range I looked at. But what I want to do is go look at the analysis just like we talked about. I want to ignore last week and then go look at the 2 weeks prior to that. And to do that, we can click on this little date selector, and there's all kinds of predefined dates you can choose, but I'm going to start with customized. Now I know that today is June the 4th, so what I really want to do, let's take a look at this. Here's June the 4th, so I want to go back 3 weeks and start then. So I'm back in May, and I want to start then on Monday, May 14th. And then I want to go through 2 weeks from there. I'm starting there, that would be 1 week. There would be 2 weeks. I'm going through May 27th. And then that way I'm ignoring the previous 7 days. And when I'm ready, I hit apply and it'll show me that data. And as you can see, for those 2 weeks, I spent $545. I made just over $1,700 with an ACoS of 31.73%, which is pretty good because that is about the profit margin for the products in these campaigns right here. Now, also one thing I could do is I could definitely click on these and drill down into the ad groups, drill down into the keywords, and start looking and seeing exactly how each one did for this time period as well. Also, another really cool feature that they recently added is a graph view for how your campaigns are running. Now I have them turned off, but let's turn those on right now. So when you do that, then it starts showing you all kinds of cool things on your graph. Let me scroll up a little bit here to show it all. So we can take all these different things off on the graph and add them back in. So when you want to look at anything on the graph, click on Add Metric, and here's all the different things we can look at. Spend, impressions, clicks, cost per click, ACoS, orders, sales, or click-through rate. You can only show 2 at a time, so let me show you how that works. So I want to see, for example, spend, and then I want to see our sales, and that's right there. And just shows you graphically. You can scroll through and see it all happening in real time. But let's imagine I also want to see ACoS. I can add it here, but it's not showing it yet on the graph because you can only see 2 things. And these 2 are still active. The one that has like a black color and the one that has an orange color. So in order to show another one, I have to take one of these off. So let's take off spend. And now we're just seeing sales. And then let's add back in ACoS. And there we go. And now you can see the ACoS is in black and it's showing the percentages over here, and the sales are in orange and it's showing the dollar amounts over here. And as you can see, our ACoS has constantly been improving. We started out, let's take off sales to make it clear. We started out about 80% a while ago, 40% good. Now we're getting bad again, a little better. And then little by little, we've really been improving our ACoS over that time period. So our optimization for that time period really seemed to take off and work. Then we can always go back and add something else in. We can add in click-through rate. And let's see, maybe click-through rate and ACoS are kind of correlated. So interesting it is. So as our ACoS went down, you'll notice that our click-through rate kind of stayed the same, maybe went up a little bit, which is good because that means that our ads were more relevant and preferably or hopefully people were liking the ads and liking the products and buying them. So this is how you go into your campaign manager and filter on the dates that you want and look at all different types of data. And remember, again, we can actually drill down to each of these campaigns. From the manual one, we can drill down and look at all the different keywords and see how they're performing. And for the auto one, we can drill down into it, but since there are not any keywords, it's automatic. Amazon picks the keywords. You can't see them in there. But really, drilling down into the manual one is where you also want to go next in order to start looking at the individual keywords. Now that's how you can take a look at your campaign live and see how it's actually performing and make changes to it. But sometimes you need more data. You need to get a search term report to find out exactly what our customers are searching for. If you look inside this campaign, you'll see the keywords that you actually are bidding on, but what you won't see are all the keywords that people are actually searching for. So let's go see how we do that now. If we scroll up, we'll see this little button that says Add Reports, and we can also get that by going to our menu at the top as well, going to Reports, Advertisement Reports, but either one gets us the exact same place. Let's just go here for now. Now on this screen, it's going to tell us all different kinds of reports that we can run. The one that I use all the time is the search term report. But as you'll see, there are other types of reports. We're not going to go over all those. It's really this report here that you want to figure out exactly what are people searching for when they're looking for your products. So we want to select search term. You can just leave the normal the report name as it is. And for the time period, again, I'm going to go customized and I'm going to do the exact same time period. I remember I wanted to start this on May, let's see, the 14th, and I wanted to go through May the 27th and click Apply, and then click Create Report. And now it's generating that report right now, and all we need to do is download it, and then we can actually pull it into a spreadsheet program. Let me show you how that's done using another report that I already created with more data. Now here's what a report looks like when you paste this into a spreadsheet. I've done a little bit of formatting on it. I've just widened the columns, and then I put some shading here so I can read these columns. But these are all the columns that you'll find in the search report. You have the campaign name, ad group name, customer search term, and the keyword. And let me talk about those first. The keyword is actually what you have inside of your campaign, what you've entered in there, so that that's the keyword that you want your product to show up for when someone searches for it. Now, we also get the customer search term. So for example, right here, our keyword is olive oil sprayer, but since it's phrase, if that shows up inside the search term, then we also have the chance for our ad to show up. So the customer entered Misto olive oil sprayer, but because the phrase of olive oil sprayer was in there, our ad did show up. Same thing below, pump olive oil sprayer. That phrase of olive oil sprayer is in there. So what the cool thing is here is you get to see exactly what the customers are searching for whenever they're clicking on your ad. Now down here when you see asterisks, that means that this is an auto campaign and there is no keyword. Remember, we don't enter any keywords in auto campaigns, so Amazon just figures it out. But we do get to see what the customer search term just like up here, and so we can tell exactly what they're searching for. Now to continue over here, there's the columns. There's whether it's the match type is phrase or broad, and for the auto campaigns, they're always broad. And then I'm going to skip some of these. I don't want to go through all of them. I just want to cover the important ones. So the impressions is how many times that your ad was actually shown, and then clicks is how many times someone clicked on it. And then they're just going to show you the click-through rate, which is simply your clicks over impressions. The total spend is how much you spent during that entire time period on that keyword. Then they're just going to average it out, how much the average cost per click was. And then they're going to calculate your ACoS. So this is one of the first things you're going to want to look at to get an idea how each keyword is performing. Now, later on, when I show you how to optimize your ad, you're going to need several columns here. What you will need is your total spend. You're going to need your clicks, and then you're going to need your sales. And that's a little confusing because the sales are in multiple columns. We have one over here called product sales within 1 week, one here called same SKU units within 1 week, and other SKU units within 1 week. So same SKU units means every time they clicked on your ad for that product, this is the sales attributed for that product and nothing else. Now, some people will click on one of your ads and they'll end up buying a different product altogether. And that's what this column is for here. And then finally, this column right here is simply those all added together. What I like to use when optimizing is the same SKU units. Because for me, I'm trying to sell a certain product and I just want to figure out when do they actually buy the product I'm trying to sell. So I'll use same SKU units product sales for what I'm calling the sales for that keyword and for that product. So now that you know how to run this report, paste it into a spreadsheet, and then look at the different columns to get different pieces of information, let's head back and review how we're going to optimize our campaigns using a spreadsheet like this or directly inside of your campaign. So now that you know how to run your ads, and after you have them running for a while, you know how to download your data and look at your campaigns, here are the two optimization strategies you can use. They're very basic, but very effective. Now, the following strategies are primarily for when you're in the sales and profit mode, which is where most of us are most of the time, but they can be applied when you're launching products or even watching your inventory levels as well. So here's the first strategy. It involves slowly increasing or decreasing each of your bids each week until you finally reach your target ACoS. So for each keyword with an ACoS less than your target ACoS, you want to increase your bid by 10 cents. And then for each keyword with an ACoS greater than your target ACoS, you simply want to decrease your bid by 10 cents as well. It doesn't matter how far off you are of your ACoS, you just want to always go up or down by 10 cents. And this strategy does work. Now, the second strategy is a bit more dramatic, and it'll attempt to hit your target ACoS each week with a much larger bid adjustment. So the way you do it is you adjust your bids for each keyword, just like you did for the previous strategy, but instead of 10 cents up or down, you adjust it based upon Mike's magic optimization formula. And I call it that because it's a formula that I came up with a few years ago, and it flat out works every single time. And I've only shown this one other time before. So here it is. When you're analyzing your data and trying to figure out how you need to change each of your max cost per clicks per keyword, that new max cost per click equals the total sales shown for that keyword on the report, divided by the total clicks, and then multiplied by your target ACoS. Notice that it doesn't have anything to do with what you spent right now. Also, it doesn't have anything to do with what your current ACoS is either. You just need to know your total sales, total clicks, and then your target ACoS, which we know to be your profit margin. Now, if you have keywords that are already performing exceptionally well, and because we're using a formula that takes into account how well they are performing, it's possible that this formula could suggest that you drastically increase your maximum cost per click. So if that happens, and I'm thinking that if it suggests anything more than $1 increase, you'll want to consider limiting just how big of an increase you actually make each week on that keyword. Now, there'll be more on that later, but I just want to point that out right now. Even though we're telling you what that new maximum cost per click should be, there will be another step where you want to look and see just how big that increase is and decide if you want to go that big. So let's take a look at a few real examples of using this. So there's the formula we'll be using. And imagine our target ACoS is 35%. So that is our profit margin. And here's a snapshot from a report showing how two different keywords are performing for a product. So let's take a look at product A first. It received 637 clicks, made over $709 in sales for an ACoS of almost 142%, which is really high no matter which strategy we're going for. So in order to determine the new maximum cost per click, we'll take the sales, $709.89, divided by the clicks, 637 clicks, and then multiplied by our target ACoS, and that'll give us our new maximum cost per click of 39 cents per click. The same thing then for product number B. We'll take the sales, $139.98, divided by the clicks, 157, multiplied by our target ACoS of 35%, which gives us a maximum cost per click of 31 cents per click. Now, if you just take this formula and apply it to any of your products' keywords in your ads, this will tell you how to rein in your max cost per click, especially for those times where our ACoS is too high. The reverse is true, of course, that if we did have some keywords that were performing really well, this formula will tell you to raise your maximum cost per click because you have more of a margin to work with. Just keep in mind what we mentioned earlier, that if this tells you to raise it by too much, by $1 or more, you may want to cap what you're doing and only raise it by $1 at the max each week, because sometimes you may just have a lucky week and a campaign does exceptionally well, and it's going to tell you to raise your bid to like $10 or $20 a click, and we don't want to do that. You'll want to do this each week when you're optimizing for each one of your keywords in your manual campaigns. For your auto campaigns, well, they don't have keywords, so you can't really do the same strategy. You could, if you wanted to, at the campaign level, apply the same formula. Look at the clicks, look at the sales, and your target ACoS. However, we generally use auto campaigns just for keyword discovery. I keep my bids low, my budget low, and I look at it each week to see if any new search phrases pop up that I might want to test out and add in my manual campaigns. Now, if you have keywords that are getting 0 sales, no matter how many clicks they're getting, this formula won't work because you're multiplying by 0. So if that happens, you need to look at them. And if that keyword is getting no or very few clicks, I would consider increasing your bid to get a few more clicks so that way you can tell whether or not that keyword's really going to work out for you. If you're not getting any traffic or clicks on it yet, it's hard to tell whether it's going to work. However, if you are getting consistent clicks but just no sales, I would remove the keyword altogether. The formula is not going to work. That keyword just isn't working out. Also, 2 very important tips here. I would set a maximum that you're willing to increase any bid by each week. I would suggest to make that $1 increases because my formula, if it comes across a keyword that has a really, really awesome low ACoS, is going to suggest increasing your bid dramatically because it thinks you have a huge amount of profit to work with and that product is converting extremely well. Well, you don't want to increase your bid to $20 or $30, even though the formula may think that. Therefore, I would suggest only increasing any keyword by $1 each week. Second, I would also consider setting a maximum amount you'll ever bid on any keyword. And I would make that $3, but that could be a little higher or lower depending on your category's competition. And the reason, again, is that if you're getting great performance off your ads and your keywords, it's going to look at it and suggest that you actually kick up that bid even more. But we need to be reasonable still. You don't want to be spending $5 or $10 on a single click when you know it just doesn't make sense. So be sure to keep both those in mind. Maximum of $1 increases per week per keyword, and then set a max that you'll ever bid total for any keyword. Now, if you are increasing your bids by quite a bit, keep in mind you may need to adjust your budgets as well. Because if your bids are going up to $2 or $3 each on each keyword, well, you may quickly run out of the budget for that campaign and you're going to lose sales on your other keywords that didn't go up. I would suggest making $10 budget increases each week if you see that happening. You also want to be sure to run the search term report every week. That's a report I showed you a little earlier in order to discover new keywords you might not already have in your manual campaign. If you see them there and they're starting to get some sales, try them out in your manual campaign. In addition to that, you can use that search term report to identify negative keywords, which we'll talk about next. When downloading your search term report that we just went through, if you discover keywords that are showing up in customer searches but are not relevant at all and are not generating sales for your product, you want to add those search terms to your negative keywords list for both your auto and your manual campaigns for that product. And when adding them, you most likely want to add them as an exact match. That's how we generally add negative keywords, always as an exact match. However, there can be cases where you want it to be a phrase match if it truly is a term that you never want to show up in any combination. This way, when Amazon sees them in a search, they will not show your ad and waste money and waste clicks. Also, any keywords that you have in your manual campaign should be added as exact negative keywords in that same product's auto campaigns. If you're bidding intentionally on a certain keyword or keyword phrase in your manual campaign, you don't want Amazon to go and test it out in your auto campaign because you're already bidding on that. And then lastly, when you find keywords that work well in your auto campaign, remember the auto campaign is for discovery and trying to find new search terms that are working for your product. When you find those, you want to add them to your manual campaign, not as a negative keyword. You want it to be a real search term because it's getting you sales. And then you want to take that keyword and make it a negative keyword in your auto campaign. Because just like the bullet point above, that's now a search term we're intentionally bidding on, and we don't need Amazon to try to test around that with that keyword in the auto campaign. And that's it, and it's time for you to take action. When your product is live on Amazon, set up your auto and manual campaigns, and then start optimizing them after you have several weeks of data using what you learned in this lesson. And coming up, in the next lesson, we'll get social and set up your content marketing strategy. So head on over and I'll see you in that lesson.